The watchdog vanished, and the crime followed. Welcome to Marple Mysteries. I am your host, Harrington. Share your city. I read them all. Wolfe tracks the guard, who never barked. Thursday was trying to look ordinary, but the rain outside refused cooperation. It slid down the brownstone windows in sheets. Inside, Fritz had the kitchen smelling of onion bread, and the orchids upstairs were being tended on schedule. I was at my desk pretending to enjoy paperwork. Wolfe sat in his red chair, motionless except for the eyes. When he thinks, he settles like a boulder and lets the world orbit. I was deciding on another cup of coffee when the front bell rang, sharp and impatient. Wolfe didn't stir, so I went to the hall and opened the door on a woman who looked as if she had marched through the rain without asking its permission. Mid-30s, wool coat, umbrella held like it had opinions. Her eyes did a quick inventory of the hall. "I need Mr. Wolfe," she said. "I'm Archie Goodwin. You are?" "Clara Redden. He's expecting me." "Come in." She stepped inside, snapped her umbrella shut, and paused at Inspector Kramer's hat on the stand. Her mouth tightened. "You have police here?" "Only when they're hungry. This way." In the office, she sat on the yellow chair beside my desk without removing her gloves. Wolfe gave her a nod that served as greeting. "Mrs. Redden," he said, "state your business." She opened her handbag and took out a small leather case, scuffed at the corners. She set it on my blotter like a challenge. "This was on our mantel this morning," she said. "It shouldn't have been." I opened the case. Inside was an old pocket watch, thick and plain, the kind railroad men carried. The crystal was scratched, but the hands still moved. On the back was an engraving, "To E.R. from A, 1919. Wolfe studied it from his chair without reaching. "A watch," he said. "Why is its appearance troubling?" "Because it was stolen 3 months ago," she said, "from my husband's office safe, along with some documents and petty cash. The police called it burglary. Insurance called it routine. To us, it was family. It belonged to Edward's grandfather and never left the safe unless Edward wore it. After the theft, it vanished. Now it has returned, in its case, in our living room. Neither of us put it there." "Then someone entered your home," Wolfe said mildly. "Yes, and they want us to know they can. This isn't apology. It's a message." "A message to what end?" "My husband runs Redden Industrial Logistics," she said. "We move goods for people who dislike surprises. If his partners think his safe can be opened and his house can be entered, they'll decide he's weak. Competitors will decide he's ripe. The board will decide he's replaceable. Edward can't afford fear, and he's terrible at caution. So I'm here before he blunders." Her hands were steady in the gloves, but the knuckles were pale. Fear, yes, but anger too, aimed partly at the intruder and partly at the husband who might take the wrong bait. Wolfe's eyelids lowered. "You have not reported this return to the police?" "No, not yet. The first theft was loud enough. I want this handled quietly." She hesitated. "Also, last night Edward told me a man named Hollis Crane wants to see him today." Wolfe's chin rose a fraction. "Hollis Crane? You know him?" "I know of him." "Continue." "He's a fixer. When fixers call, they don't bring gifts. Edward is set on meeting him at 1. Her voice tightened. "If someone can open a safe and stroll into our house to return an heirloom, they aren't playing a simple game. Edward thinks he can stare down anyone who pushes him. I know better." Wolfe was silent for a beat. "You wish me to prevent your husband from meeting this man." "I want you to do what you do," she said, sounding as if she resented needing to ask. "Find out who took that watch. Find out why they gave it back. Find out what they want from Edward, and if you can, keep him alive long enough to apologize for being brave." She glanced at the watch. "It came back like a watchdog. I'm afraid the next sign will bite." Clara Redden had the kind of control that makes you forget she's asking for help. Wolfe looked at her coolly. "The theft 3 months ago," he said. Anything besides cash and papers? Only those. The safe wasn't forced. Whoever did it knew the combination. Who knew it? Edward, his secretary, and the comptroller. The secretary quit 2 weeks later. She said she was ill. Name: Lila Vance. And the comptroller: Martin Hale. He's been with Edward 15 years. Wolfe let that hang. Is your husband capable of staging a burglary? Clara stiffened. Edward is vain, not suicidal. Very well. You will bring him here before he meets Hollis Crane. He won't come. He hates being steered. Tell him you will leave him today if he meets Crane without consulting me. He will come. She colored at the bluntness, then went to the hall phone. Through the door I heard her voice, clipped, leaving no room for debate. Wolfe waited in silence. I opened the watch case again. Heavy old thing, no scent but metal and dust. Clara returned, jaw high. He's coming. He won't cancel Crane. He says he'll try to bring him. Excellent, Wolfe said. Dangerous, she muttered. Crane avoids homes. Mr. Goodwin will accompany your husband if necessary, Wolfe said. He asked who might want to scare Edward. Arvindale Freight is our worst rival on the Harrow Bridge municipal contract. Paul Arvindale lunched with Edward 2 days before the safe was robbed. Edward even showed him the watch. She took a breath. Edward's cousin Trevor wants the company, and Martin Hale handles our money and always looks like he's waiting for something to fall into his hands. A serviceable triangle, Wolfe murmured. The bell rang again. Edward Redden came in dripping rain, tall and sure of his elbows. Behind him was Hollis Crane, thin, dark suit, eyes that checked the house on the way to the office. Edward shook my hand like he was testing a wrench. My wife says you've got Wolfe spooked about a watch, he said. Spooked is a strong word, I told him. Come meet the man who doesn't like strong words. Crane sat when Wolfe pointed. Edward stayed standing. Wolfe said to Crane, Mrs. Redden has shown us a watch taken from Mr. Redden's safe and returned to his home. Are you connected with that? Crane's face didn't twitch. No. Then state your business. Crane folded his hat on his knee. Someone inside Redden Industrial has been selling your route and bid data to Arvindale Freight. My employer has a stake in the Harrow Bridge contract and dislikes subsidizing thieves. He sent me to offer terms. Edward's mouth went hard. Terms meaning what? Meaning the leakage stops today, Crane said, or the Harrow Bridge bid collapses on Monday, along with certain reputations. I had seen shakedowns before, but this one wore gloves. Crane wasn't enjoying himself. He was delivering a package and waiting for a receipt. His eyes never touched the watch case on my desk, yet I could feel him measuring it the way a safe cracker measures a dial without looking. That made me like him even less. Clara made a small sound. Edward turned on her. You dragged me here for this? I dragged you here because someone walked into our house last night. Wolfe lifted a hand. Mr. Crane, you say you can influence the bid. How? Crane looked at Wolfe for the first time as a man looks at a locked door. Documents will surface, copies, enough to make the city nervous about your ethics. Whether they are genuine will not matter. And you know who is selling the information? I know the channel, not the hand, but I will learn it if Mr. Redden cooperates. Wolfe's eyes held him. You will learn it on my schedule. Mr. Redden, you will remain here for the next hour. Mr. Crane, you will wait also. Mr. Goodwin and I will confer. Edward started to protest, then caught Wolfe's mouth and shut it. Crane's calm didn't break, but his fingers tightened once on the hat. Wolfe turned to me. Archie, we have been given a frame. Now we must see what picture fits inside it. Wolfe waved me into the alcove and shut the door on the Reddens and Crane. Crane is not our burglar, he said, but he is a signal. If someone is leaking bids to Arvindale, the burglary and the watch return are pressure. Pressure on Edward, I said. On him and on whoever fears exposure. The return inside the house shows confidence. Either an insider who knows the routines or a professional with help. We must see how the safe circle intersects with the bid leak. Go to the company, examine the safe, speak to Hale, obtain the burglary report from Kramer. If you see obstruction, call Saul Panzer. Crane is due back at 6, so we have hours, not days. I opened the door. Edward sat rigid, Clara tense, Crane bland. Wolfe accepted the case and named his fee. Edward blinked once. Clara didn't. Wolfe told Crane to return at 6. Crane left smoothly, the sort of smooth that makes you look for the oil can. Edward said he had to get back to his office. Wolfe said I would go with him. Clara objected until Wolfe reminded her she had come for guidance. She yielded, and 5 minutes later I was in their car, Edward driving, Clara behind us, and the watch case on my lap because Edward wouldn't leave it. Redden Industrial was a glass slab on West 47th. Edward pushed through the lobby and up to his suite. The safe was behind a painting of a clipper ship. He spun the dial, opened it, and stabbed at the empty shelves. There, clean. No tricks. Who cleans a safe after a burglary? I asked. I did. I didn't want anything left that could be used against us. Even dust. I crouched. Around the dial were faint arcs, shallow scratches, like a tool had tested the surface. You ever changed the combination? He frowned. Not since we moved in. Then people learn it. Secretaries hear it. You show off the watch and the dial to impress rivals. He grunted. Hale handles security. He said we were tight. Let's see Hale. Martin Hale came in fast and neat, tie knotted like a vow. He was careful with Edward and cool with me. We're revisiting the burglary, I said. Who besides you, Lila Vance and Mr. Redden, knew the combination? No one. Lila was told only because she handled payroll when Mr. Redden traveled. You trusted her. She was competent. She left for health reasons. Did she ever work late? Copy files? No. Who can reach the Harrowbridge bid folder? Operations, legal, Mr. Redden, and myself. Permissions are restricted. I monitor access logs. Show me. He hesitated, then opened his computer. 2 late-night entries last week hit the bid directory, both from an admin account tagged Mavaanse. I pointed. That account should be dead. Hale stared. It was disabled. Yet it logged in at 2:15 a.m. and 2:40. Who can reactivate it? I can, he said, and then stiffened. Edward leaned forward. Martin, tell me this is a mistake. Hale clicked through settings. The M. Vance account was active, and a rule forwarded bid updates to an external address. His face went pale. I asked Hale for the address. He refused at first, then gave it when Edward's stare turned ugly. It was a webmail account under a fake name, quick to make and quick to burn. I wrote it down, and Hale promised he would lock every credential in the building. Promises aren't locks, but they tell you where the hands are for the moment anyway. Archie. I said, where is Lila Vance now? I don't know, he managed. Edward's laugh was sharp. You don't know where my ex-secretary is, but her account is raiding our bids in the middle of the night. Hale looked up. Someone is framing her. Or she's framing you, I said. The rain ticked on the windows. Edward's jaw tightened as he did the math he hated. Clara, at the door, let out a slow breath. Not relief exactly. More like the sound you make when the monster you feared finally shows a face and you find you still have to deal with it. I took Hale into the small conference room before Edward could chew him into confetti. Clara stayed in the doorway, listening with the patience of someone who has learned that men lie faster when they think they're alone. Martin, I said, give me facts. Did you reactivate the MV Ants account? No, I disabled it myself the day she left. Then who has your admin credentials? Only me. They're on a token in my desk. Which desk? The one anyone can open when you're at lunch? He bristled. My office is locked. Locks are polite suggestions. Anyone in house you'd suspect? His eyes flicked toward Edward's silhouette. Trevor Redden has access to the floor. He's family, but he wouldn't. Family knows shortcuts. Anyone else? Paul Arvindale's people were here twice on technical visits. They were escorted, but they had time. Escorted by whom? By Lila, before she left. That got a tiny sound out of Clara. Hale heard it and colored. Lila was close to the Arvindale team? I asked. She handled their schedules. She wasn't close. Did she and Edward ever? No, Hale snapped, then softer. She admired him, that's all. I left him stewing and stepped into Edward's office. Edward was pacing. You see what's happening? He barked. They're using Lila's name to get at me. Or Lila's using your name to get at you, I said. You didn't tell me how she left. He waved a hand. She got sick. She went home to Jersey. I sent flowers. To a mailbox? He stopped. What are you saying? Her account is alive. Her logins are real. And if that's not her, then it's someone with your admin keys. Clara came in. Edward, when Lila quit, did she speak to you privately? She asked for a reference. And you gave it, Clara said. She was also the only one besides you and Martin who knew the safe combination. Edward's face hardened. You think she'd steal from me? I think she might have been told to steal, Clara said. You never noticed who she met after work. They glared at each other. I ducked out. In the corridor, the office noise felt too bright. Phones chirping, printers whining, as if the building didn't know it was sitting on a fuse. I watched two clerks pass with coffee cups and faces, and wondered which hand could turn a token into a knife. When I came back from the stairwell, Hale's door was half open, and for an instant I thought someone had been inside. On the way down, I called Kramer. He grumbled, but owed Wolfe enough dinners. Burglary at Redden Industrial, August 15th, he said. Safe opened clean, no prints, alarms bypassed with internal codes. We talked to Hale and Lila Vance. She checked out. Insurance paid. Any other incidents since? Anonymous tips about bid tampering on Harrow Bridge. Nothing solid. Your fat boss in it now? Up to his neck. Send me the report. Back upstairs, while Hale unlocked drawers to show me the token, his phone blinked. He glanced, went still. It's from Lila. He shoved the screen at me. A text, 4 words. Don't trust Edward. That's friendly, I said. Hale's eyes were wide. She's alive. Or someone wants you to think so. Where did it come from? Unknown number, but the phrasing, it's her. Forward it to me. Then call her. Speaker. He dialed. The line rang twice. A woman answered, breathless. Martin. The voice was low, familiar to him. Lila, where are you? A pause. Not safe. They're watching. I shouldn't have messaged you. Who are they? I cut in. Silence. Then, Archie Goodwin. You're with Wolfe. Yes. Tell him the watch was never about money, she said quickly. It's leverage. They'll come for me if I talk. I have something to prove it, but only if you get me first. Where? Broadway and 93rd. Cafe with a green awning. 20 minutes. The line went dead. Hale stared at the phone. 20 minutes is a long time to be honest, and a short time to be murdered. I called Wolfe from the hall and gave him the gist. Go, he said. Take precautions. Saul Panzer will shadow you. Saul Panzer appeared outside the building as if he'd been leaning on the rain. He slid into the cab beside me without ceremony. Saul saves talk for evidence. Broadway and 93rd, I told the driver. Step on it. Saul glanced at me. Trap. Everything's a trap. We're just checking the label. We rode uptown through wet streets. I used the time to picture Lila Vance. I'd met her once when she brought a file to Wolfe and tried to smile. Wolfe read the file and ignored the smile. I'm not immune, but I don't like surprises. The cafe with the green awning was half full. I took a table facing the door. Saul stood at the counter, pretending to debate pastries while his eyes swept the room. 10 minutes passed. 15. No Lila. At 19, I felt my collar tighten. A bus hissed to the curb. A woman in a grey hood got off, crossed fast, and came in. She kept her head down until she saw me. When she lifted it, I recognized her, and so did Saul, because his posture went a shade straighter. Lila slid into the chair opposite. She was thinner, the kind of thin you get from not sleeping. Her eyes jumped around like pins in a map. You came alone? She asked. Hardly. Saul Panzer is over there hating muffins. She nodded once. Good. They might follow him too, but he's harder to brush. Who are they? She pulled a small envelope from her coat and set it between us. Arvindale Freight, or someone tied to them. I didn't know at first. I thought it was a favor. A favor that ends with a burglary? She swallowed. Trevor Redden came to me last summer. Said he could get me promoted if I helped him confirm numbers. He claimed Edward was cooking bids for Harrowbridge and the board needed proof. He asked for copies of route sheets and cost projections. I gave a few, thinking I was protecting the company. Trevor wants Edward's chair, I said. Yes. Then he pressed for more. Once he brought a man with him, tall, quiet, scar on his thumb. He watched me like a lock. Trevor said I should disable the alarm for 5 minutes on a Saturday. I refused. He smiled and said he had something to improve my memory. She produced a creased photograph. It showed her leaving a building with a man close enough to be called Scandal. The man's face was turned away. Blackmail, I said. Leverage, she said bitterly. He threatened to send it to Edward and my family. I panicked. I left my access card where he told me. The safe theft happened the next week. I wasn't there. Trevor said afterward the watch was all he cared about. Why would a pocket watch matter to a corporate coup? She leaned in. Because inside the watch case, Edward keeps a key. It opens a compartment in the safe. Only Edward and Martin know. Edward calls it his watchdog. He said if the company ever went crooked, that key would prove who did it. Trevor wanted it before Edward used it. Was the key in the case when the watch was stolen? Yes, I didn't know it then. Trevor searched the safe but couldn't open the compartment. When the key wasn't in the case, he thought Edward had moved it. He said he'd force Edward to bring it back out. By returning the watch. Inside the house, a reminder he could get close. Her voice shook. Then he turned on me. He made me resign, said it was illness. He kept my admin account alive so he could pin the late-night bid leaks on me while he sent data to Arvindale. I tried to go to the police. He found out. The scar thumb man came to my apartment. I ran. Where have you been hiding? Friends. Cheap rooms. No phones. She looked past me, suddenly rigid. We shouldn't be here. The cafe door swung open. A man in a dark coat stepped in, scanning. Even at that distance, I saw the scar on his thumb. Saul was already moving. Time to go, I said. Saul intercepted the scar thumb man halfway across the cafe. He didn't grab him. Saul doesn't do theatrics. He just stepped into the man's line, like a traffic cop who knows the light is his. The man slowed, eyes narrowing, and that was all I needed. Back door, I told Lila. We slid out of the booth, keeping low. The cafe had a narrow service corridor that smelled of bleach and old coffee. I pushed through, Lila close, and we spilled into the alley behind. Rain had turned the pavement into a mirror. A delivery truck idled at the far end. Cab stand on Amsterdam, I said, and we started jogging. Lila moved like fear had made her lighter. Behind us, a door banged. Footsteps. I yanked her left through a gap between buildings and up a short service staircase that led to a rear lobby. The glass door was locked. Damn, I muttered, feeling for my pick. Lila watched the alley mouth with wide eyes. A figure appeared there, coat dark, head forward. Not Saul. Another one. He started toward us, fast. "Window," I said. The lobby had a security grate half down. I shoved it up, got my shoulder through, then hauled Lila after me. We landed on polished tile inside the building's laundry room. I slammed the door and clicked the inner bolt. The footsteps hit the glass and cursed in a low voice. The door rattled once, twice, then stopped. Whoever it was decided not to break a public door in broad daylight. We waited a beat. Lila's breathing sounded like paper tearing. I led her through the laundry room and out the front entrance. On the sidewalk, Saul was leaning against a lamp post as if he'd been there all morning. "You lost him?" I asked. "Two of them," Saul said. "One in the cafe, one outside." I persuaded the cafe man to take a walk with me. He didn't like it. Saul's mouth twitched the way other men smile. He called someone. I let him. "You let him?" I wanted him to report where we went. He'll follow the wrong trail. Saul had already arranged for a cab. We got in. Lila hugged her envelope to her chest. "Brownstone," I told the driver. Then to Saul, "You think the scar-thumb man works for Trevor?" Maybe Crane, maybe Arvindale directly." "Or maybe Hale," I said, "because a good idea shouldn't go unspoken just because you don't like it." Saul didn't answer, which is his way of saying, "Keep thinking." At the Brownstone, Fritz met us with a look that said he had opinions about wet strangers. I gave him a fast summary and took Lila to the office. Wolfe was waiting, hands steepled. He didn't rise, of course. He didn't need to. A room bends to him the way a question bends to an answer. "Miss Vance," he said, "you have risked much. Sit." She sat on the yellow chair like it was a ledge. Wolfe listened while she told it all again, this time slower, with fewer shakes. She laid out the photograph, the envelope, and a folded printout of emails she'd copied before she ran. Wolfe asked only for clarifications. Dates, times, who said what, where. When she finished, he closed his eyes briefly. "Your narrative suggests Mr. Trevor Redden wished to obtain a key hidden in Mr. Redden's watch case, yet the burglary netted the case without the key. Therefore, the key had already been removed." "Yes," she said. "Edward kept it separate after the first time Trevor pawed the watch." "Where?" "I don't know." Wolfe opened his eyes and looked at me. "Archie, bring Mr. Redden and Mr. Hale here at once. Also, Mr. Trevor Redden. Invite Mr. Crane for 6 o'clock as arranged, and inform Inspector Kramer he will dine with us tonight and attend a gathering. I will require his stubbornness. He'll come grumbling, but he trusts your nose, and he loves Fritz's cooking more than his own temper." "Right," I said. "Any special sauce for the invitations?" "Normal civility will suffice. Trevor believes he's conducting a symphony. It is time to show him he is merely humming." I left Lila with Fritz and a cup of coffee and started dialing. Edward came first because his pride would bring him running if he thought Wolfe had already decided something. He arrived with Clara 10 minutes later. Hale was trickier. He wanted to call the police, then wanted to avoid them, then wanted to resign. I told him Wolfe wanted facts, not theatre. He showed up looking like a man who had learned that calm can be a noose. Trevor Redden took longer because I didn't have his number. Edward supplied it. "Tell him it's about Harrowbridge," he said. "He'll drive through your front wall." Trevor arrived at 5:30 in a charcoal coat and a smile polished for boardrooms. He kissed Clara's hand with manners that made her fingers stiff. At 6, Hollis Crane came in without apology. Saul Panzer slipped in behind him and stationed himself near the door. Inspector Kramer arrived last and loud. He glared at Wolfe. I was having dinner. "You're still having it," Wolfe said. "Sit." The office felt smaller with bodies and Wolfe in the middle like a judge who didn't need a bench. Lila sat beside my desk, hands folded tight. Trevor noticed her, blinked, and then let his smile come back as if recognition were only a lighting problem. Wolfe recited the burglary, the watch's return, Crane's threat, and Lila's sudden reappearance. Edward stiffened. "Lila, why didn't you come to me?" "She tried," I said, "but somebody with a scar on his thumb didn't want her to." Crane's eyes narrowed a hair. Trevor's didn't move. Wolfe turned to Trevor. "Your cousin believes you loyal, are you?" Trevor laughed softly. "This is absurd." "Absurdity is often a disguise," Wolfe said. "Miss Vance, describe your dealings with Mr. Trevor Reddin." She did, steady now that the room was full of witnesses. She told about his requests for bid sheets, the photograph used to corner her, the access card left on instruction, and his statement that only the watch mattered. She explained how her disabled account had been used at night to copy new numbers, and how the scar thumb man had chased her into hiding. Edward's face set like concrete as she spoke. Hale stared at his shoes. When she finished, Wolfe asked Trevor, "Do you deny coercing her?" Trevor spread his hands. "She's lying to save herself." Wolfe nodded. "Yet her account contains a detail you would not invent unless true." He lifted the watch case I handed him. "You believed a key was kept within this case. It was absent when you stole it. Therefore, you returned the watch to frighten Mr. Reddin into producing the key, correct?" Trevor's smile thinned. "What key?" "The key Mr. Reddin removed after you handled the watch at a luncheon with Mr. Arvindale," Wolfe said. "He hid it elsewhere. Tonight I shall ask him to retrieve it and show us what it opens." Edward jerked his head. "I told no one about that key." "Except by your actions," Wolfe said. "Your anxiety after the burglary betrayed its existence. Your wife inferred it. So did your cousin." Trevor's gaze slipped toward Edward, sharp and hungry. Kramer leaned forward. Wolfe went on. "Mr. Hale, your admin token was removed from your desk on the nights of the leaks. Who knew you kept it there?" Hale swallowed. "Trevor did." "Thank you. Mr. Trevor Reddin, you have committed burglary, extortion, and corporate espionage. You used Mr. Crane's threat to hurry a coup and a hired man to menace Miss Vance. The remaining question is whether you acted with Arvindale Freight or merely sold to them. Mr. Crane, whom do you serve?" Crane said, "Investors who want the contract clean." "And who hired the scar thumb man?" Wolfe asked. Crane's eyes flicked to Trevor. "Arvindale uses him." Trevor made a small sound, halfway between a scoff and a cough, and then sat very still. Clara watched him the way you watch a match near gasoline. Saul's hand drifted inside his coat, casual but ready for trouble tonight. Wolfe let that settle. "Then we will proceed to the key." He looked at Edward. "Fetch it." Edward rose slowly, eyes never leaving Trevor. Edward left the office with the look of a man walking to his own gallows. Saul drifted after him, not because Wolfe asked, but because Saul likes doors that might open the wrong way. The rest of us stayed put. Trevor watched the hall as if he could outrun judgment. Kramer fidgeted, a cop forced to sit in someone else's courtroom. Crane's face was polished stone. Wolfe spoke into the silence. "Mr. Crane, your employer is unnamed, yet you admit using a violent agent. That weakens your posture." "My employer wants theft corrected," Crane said. "Violence was not my instruction." "Nevertheless, you tolerate it." Crane said nothing. Wolfe turned to Clara. "Mrs. Reddin, your husband's grandfather left him a watch and a lesson. He said the company would be tested by hunger before profit." "Indeed." Wolfe's eyes moved to Hale. "Mr. Hale, why did you not notice the account reactivation sooner?" Hale flushed. "I did. I thought it was Lila returning for revenge. To confront a ghost while leaving your token accessible. Incompetence is generous." Hale winced. Trevor's confidence leaked, and he did not know where the hole was. Edward returned in minutes. His hair was damp, his jaw tight. In his hand was a small brass key on a ring. Saul came in behind him and shut the door. "This was behind my father's war photo," Edward said. "I forgot it was there." Wolfe nodded. "Open the watch case." Edward snapped it open. The watch lay there like a blunt witness. He fitted the key into a tiny slot under the velvet. A thin panel popped loose, revealing a folded strip of paper and a second, smaller key. Trevor jerked upright. "What is that?" "A watchdog," Edward said. "Grandfather's handwriting. After his partner tried to steal roots during the rail strike, he wrote the man's name, dates, and account numbers, then hid them here so betrayal could be proved." Wolfe extended a hand. I gave him the paper. He read it once. "Mr. Redden, read the final line aloud." Edward swallowed. "If you are reading this, you have seen the company's soul in a mirror. Feed it, do not sell it." Wolfe looked at Trevor. "Your grandfather offered counsel. You attempted to steal his tool." Trevor's face went pale to red. "This is family business." Kramer barked a laugh. "Burglary's burglary. Stand up, Trevor." Trevor didn't stand. He sprang, hands shooting toward Edward, not for the watch, but for the smaller key, thinking to swallow it or run. Saul moved like a door slamming. He caught Trevor's wrist and twisted him down. Trevor yelped. Kramer was on him, cuffing with satisfaction. Crane rose halfway, then sat when Saul glanced at him. Clara's breath came out in a shudder she'd been holding for months. Hale stared at Trevor, as if at his own shadow. Wolfe said quietly, "Mr. Crane, report to your employer that the leak is identified. If your employer values legality, he will retreat. If he values only victory, Inspector Kramer knows where to find him." Crane inclined his head. "Understood." Kramer hauled Trevor up. "You're coming with me. Miss Vance will give a statement." "She will," Wolfe said. "After dinner. Fritz has prepared sauerbraten, and no human enterprise should interfere with it." Kramer opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He marched Trevor out. I watched the door close behind them and felt the old, tired click of a puzzle locking into place. Edward's hands were shaking now that the fight was over. He hid them by closing the watch case with care that bordered on reverence. Saul resumed his post by the hall, expression empty, but his eyes said he would remember the Scar Thumb Man if he ever surfaced again on some darker corner someday. The room exhaled. Edward sank into the chair Trevor had vacated. He looked at his wife. "I'm sorry." Clara nodded once, fierce and tired. Lila let her shoulders drop at last. Wolfe regarded the watch on the desk as if it were a small, stubborn planet that had resumed its rightful orbit. "As I said," Wolfe murmured. "A watchdog. It does not bite. It reminds the foolish that teeth exist." When Kramer's footsteps faded down the stoop, the brownstone felt like it had shrugged off a wet coat. The rain was still at the windows, but inside the air warmed. Even Wolfe's chair seemed to settle deeper, content with the day's use. Edward stood again, awkward now that there was no opponent. "Mr. Wolfe," he said, "I didn't deserve this rescue." "You deserved the consequences of your vanity," Wolfe replied. "You will receive them in moderation. Sit and eat." Clara touched Edward's sleeve. "We'll speak later," she said, and the way she said it meant both forgiveness and a future audit. Edward nodded, chastened. Lila Vance hovered near my desk. "Inspector Kramer will want everything," she said. "He'll get everything," I told her, "but not before you make a serious dent in Fritz's sauerbraten. You've been running on fumes." Wolfe addressed her without looking up from the watch case. "Miss Vance, you will be safe tonight. Tomorrow, Mr. Goodwin will accompany you to Kramer. Your testimony will be unpleasant but useful. Thereafter, I advise you to seek employment where family is not a credential." "Yes, sir," she said. "Thank you." Crane cleared his throat. Mr. Wolfe, my employer will want assurance this won't spread. Wolfe's eyes lifted just enough to skewer him politely. Your employer has already spread it. If he wishes less illumination, he should stop striking matches. You will inform Arvindale that any further use of Mr. Reddin's data will be met with public disclosure. I will provide copies to the municipal board and the press. Crane gave a small nod, realizing he was being used to deliver another man's threat. He left quietly. Sol Panzer watched him go, and then shrugged at me, meaning the street would handle the rest. Fritz announced dinner. Wolfe rose with the solemnity of ritual and floated toward the dining room. We followed. The table was set like a promise, thick slices of sauerbraten, red cabbage glossy as lacquer, dumplings steaming. Halfway through the main course, Edward found his voice again, softer this time. That paper in the case, Grandfather never mentioned it. He mentioned the idea, Clara said. You were too busy being admired to listen. He let the jab land. I'll listen now. You must, Wolfe said. Industry without ethics is merely appetite with machinery. I couldn't resist. Coming from a man who can identify a spice by scent at 20 feet, that's rich. Wolfe didn't blink. My appetite is frank, Archie. Many men's appetites are furtive. That is the locus of their trouble. Dessert was apple tart. By then, the house had returned to its usual gravity. Lila looked less like a fugitive and more like a young woman who had slept. Edward and Clara arranged a car for her and promised a lawyer. Hale called his wife in the hall and sounded older. Saul departed after coffee, a shadow slipping into the rain. When the Reddins finally left, Edward paused in the hall with the watch in his hand. I'm keeping it at home, he said, and the keys with it. No more secret altars. A wise revision, Wolfe said. But remember, security is not a hiding place. It is a habit. After they were gone, I came back to the office to find Wolfe idling in his chair, eyes half closed, the last of his coffee cooling beside him. So, I said, not murder, but a nice thick stew of greed and family affection. Affection is frequently greedy, Wolfe said. It imagines possession as love. Trevor imagined his hunger was entitlement. He forgot that a company, like a person, is a creature of memory. He opened his eyes fully then, and for a moment looked not triumphant but tired, as if thinking of how many appetites one watch could expose today. You think Arvindale backs off? For now, men like Arvindale retreat when the arithmetic changes. Your concern should be Mr. Reddin's arithmetic. He'll be all right. Clara does the long division. Wolfe permitted a small sound that might have been amusement. Then the brownstone may resume its peace. Until the next disturbance chooses our door. I'll keep the chain oiled, I said, and turned out the light. Morning came in on a clean, cold front, the kind that makes yesterday's rain feel like a rumor. The brownstone was back in its grooves. Fritz hummed in the kitchen, the orchids were getting their royal mist upstairs, and Wolfe was already planted in his chair, with a book that looked fit for ballast. I had just sat down with coffee when the bell rang. I opened it on Inspector Kramer, hat in hand, coat collar up, expression set to sour. Don't tell me you made breakfast for me again, he growled. I waved him in and steered him to the office. Wolfe didn't look up. Good morning, Inspector, Wolfe said. You are punctual for a man who dislikes mornings. I dislike criminals more. Where's the girl? In the kitchen, I said. Eating as ordered. Kramer snorted. You two run your own precinct. Only when the city neglects its chores, Wolfe said. You arrested Trevor Reddin without incident. Without incident. He tried to claim family privilege, then lawyer privilege. The burglary charge sticks. The extortion's fat enough to sit on. He's already singing about conspiracies. Excellent. Miss Vance will provide her statement now. We found Lila at the kitchen table with toast and a steadier face. Kramer took her to the front room, and I sat in because he likes witnesses who can keep up. She told it. Straight. Trevor's first approach, the talk of duty to the board, the photograph, the access card, the safe robbery, the threats, and her flight. Kramer asked about the scar thumb man. She described him. I added the chase up Broadway. Kramer wrote until his pen squeaked. When she finished, he tucked his notebook away. Miss Vance, you'll be protected. Don't talk to anyone else. If Arvindale tries anything, call me or Goodwin. He hesitated, then muttered, You did right coming back. Her eyes shone for a second. Kramer left with her for central booking, grumbling about paperwork the whole way. I went upstairs and found Wolfe contemplating a cluster of cattleyas. Kramer behaved, I said. Somewhere a statue just fainted. Wolfe ignored the jest. The case is not fully extinct. Trevor Redden is the principal actor, but not the soloist. Arvindale accepted his data, employed a thug, and sent Crane to stiffen the tempo. The city's board will now scrutinize both firms. That may heal, or it may fester. Meaning Edward might still lose Harrow Bridge. Possibly. Yet he has earned a bruise. Men who secure gates by bravado invite burglars to educate them. You think he learned? His wife learned long ago. He will learn because she will insist. A useful arrangement. At noon, Fritz called lunch. We ate in peace, and for a while, yesterday felt like something that happened to other people in another house. After coffee, Saul Panzer phoned. Arvindale's scar thumb man left town early, he said. Train to Philadelphia. Paid in cash. Trevor's lawyer called Arvindale's counsel an hour ago. So the orchestra is packing up, I said. Maybe, but they'll keep the instruments. Tell Wolfe. I did. Wolfe absorbed it, then dismissed it with a lazy wave. Arvindale will retreat for now. They are cowards to their own appetites. He sat silent a moment, then said, Bring me the watch. I fetched it from the drawer where Edward had left it overnight. Wolfe held it in his palm, heavy and patient. A watch measures time, he said. But men use it to measure themselves. Some discover they are late. Some discover they are early. Trevor discovered he was hungry. And Edward discovered he was careless, I said. Carelessness is a cousin to vanity, Wolfe replied. Both believe the world will forgive them because it is amused. The world is rarely amused. He set the watch down gently. Put it away. The brownstone is not a museum for other men's morals. I did, and when I returned, he was already back to his book. The orchids restored to silence, the city outside resuming its noise. I looked at my coffee, now cold, and decided that was the proper epilogue. Things settle. The clock keeps moving, and if you're wise, you drink while it's hot, before it turns on you. The next afternoon, when the Harrow Bridge board had finished chewing on its nerves, Edward Redden phoned Wolfe. Took it on the speaker because Wolfe was in the orchid room and because I like hearing a man swallow pride over wire. They've suspended the bidding for 2 weeks, Edward said. Arvindale's out until they answer questions. We're still in, but under a microscope. I wanted you to know. Microscopes are useful to those who are not bacteria, Wolfe said. Conduct your business as if it were always observed. I will, and Clara says I should thank you properly. She's right. I don't like owing anyone. You do not owe me gratitude, Mr. Redden. You owe yourself better habits. There was a pause that I could feel across the line. How did you know Trevor would crack when you made me fetch the key? Wolfe took the receiver, voice mild. Because hunger is impatient. It cannot bear a closed cupboard. When men want what is hidden, they betray themselves by reaching too soon. You make it sound simple. It is simple. That is why it is difficult for the clever. Edward laughed once, short and rueful. Trevor's lawyer is trying to paint me as the villain who drove him. If he'd just asked, I'd have given him a job. Jobs are not what he desired. I see that now. Another pause. Lila's safe? She is, Wolfe said, and you will ensure she remains so. I will. Goodbye, Mr. Wolfe. Wolfe hung up and went back to his chair as if he had merely adjusted a lamp. I watched him a moment, then said, "So what happens to the watchdog now?" "It returns to its kennel," he said. "Let it remind Mr. Redden of time's weight, but do not let him worship it. A symbol is a servant, not a master." That evening, Clara stopped by alone. She didn't bring rain this time. She brought quiet. She handed Wolfe an envelope and me a look that said she had decided who she was in her own story. "Edward wanted to come," she said. "I told him to stay and sign forms. He's learning." Wolfe nodded. "You're expending effort on him." "I married him for his good parts," she said. "The bad ones are my tuition." She left without lingering. Some people leave a room like punctuation. After dinner, with Fritz clattering downstairs and the streetlights painting the windows gold, Wolfe spoke again, more to himself than to me. Trevor Redden imagined power was a thing he could seize like a purse. He did not understand that power is a function of trust, and trust is slow to build and quick to spoil. He spoiled it. "Still," I said, "no body, no chalk outline. Just a cousin in cuffs and a rival with egg on his tie. For New York, that's practically a lullaby." Wolfe looked at me over the rims of his glasses. "Do not confuse absence of murder with absence of malice. Men can kill a company, a marriage, a conscience, and walk away thinking they have merely arranged the furniture." I grinned. "You mean like returning a watch to a mantle?" "Precisely. The return was not repentance, it was a pressure point. When a man presses, he reveals the shape of his hand. Trevor revealed his. And Edward revealed his combination." Wolfe snorted. "That, too." The phone didn't ring again that night. The brownstone held its silence like a kept secret. I read the paper, filed the receipts, and listened to Wolfe turning pages upstairs. Somewhere beyond the block a siren rose and fell, but it didn't have our address. Before bed, I opened the desk drawer and looked at the watch case. The velvet was indented where the key had been. The watch ticked on, stubborn and calm. Grandfather Redden had been right. Time outlasts schemes. It does not forgive them, it just outlives them until the next fool tries. I shut the drawer, turned out the lamp, and thought that if we did our jobs well, the city could keep its watches and its watchdogs separate. But knowing New York, I wouldn't bet my coffee on it.